cooperation are the keys to working safely and efficiently. We're going to do a walkthrough of the job site. We're going to identify any potential hazards, and then we're going to formulate a work plan.
And that work plan is going to take us to our job briefing. Also, we're going to look at how we prepare for emergencies, and finally, how we set up the work site to maximize our safety and efficiency.
Let's get to work.
Sounds good. We're on the property of a commercial client. The client would like us to create a small picnic area for their employees. In order to do that, we're going to have to clear out some of the undergrowth behind us, elevate lower limbs off some of the smaller trees, and clear out some of the large dead limbs from the large oak that's immediately behind us.
Okay, in order to do that, Peter, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a work plan. Now, the work plan is going to include an assessment of the hazards of the site, what we need to do to protect the property. We'll have to decide who's going to do what, when, and how in a logical work sequence. And we're going to need to decide what equipment we'll need and what PPE we should be wearing.
Great. Let's get going.
The reason we've been hired is to remove some of the dead trees and some of the dead branches up higher in the trees to make it a little bit safer for the people on the property. We also need to remove a few trees around the perimeter of the lot.
Once we know what we're doing and where we're going to be working, we have to assess the hazards of the job site. Now, one of the first things we noticed when we came in the drive was a primary conductor right out by the street next to a tree that we have to remove. Walking through the property and in the area where we're going to be removing trees and pruning others, we notice a lot of stumps and roots, trip hazards that we'll have to be dealing with. Often the undergrowth too, we've inspected and found some poison ivy, so we're going to try to steer clear of the patches and the vines going up some of the trees.
We also need to take precautions to protect the property. For example, we have a nice fence here, which means we're probably going to have to rope some of the branches down to avoid damaging it. We also want to protect some of the smaller plants. For example, we can cover some plants to protect them, and in this case using a garbage can that we'll use later on for cleanup. Other things can simply be moved out of the way, so we'll remove these chairs.
The next thing we'll have to do, once we've assessed everything that we're supposed to do on this property and we know what the hazards are, is pull the crew together for a job briefing. Now, what the job briefing is going to consist of, with all the crew assembled, is going through what the job is, what the hazards attendant with that job are, and then looking at the ways we're going to reduce those hazards and what personal protective equipment we need to use. Also, we're going to make the specific job assignments at that point, who gets to do what. Hand signaling devices such as sign paddles or flags can be used if your crew needs to control traffic. To stop traffic, extend the flag away from the body with one hand and signal stop with the other, or use the stop paddle. To motion traffic to proceed, lower the flag or turn the paddle to the slow side and motion with the other arm for traffic to proceed. Flag signaling should only be used in low speed or low volume traffic. The flagger ordinarily positions himself on the shoulder of the road in front of the cones or within the coned area. Being ready for emergencies is an important part of the work plan. In our case, we want to know who's going to do what if we have an emergency. We have emergency phone numbers posted in the cab of our truck. We're going to have our rescue kit out and available on the work site. We want to determine how we're going to summon rescues. We can use a cell phone, we can use a radio from the truck, or we can determine if the homeowner is going to be home and we can use their telephone. And finally, we need CPR and first aid training on our crew. Be certain your first aid kit is easy to find and fully stocked before an emergency occurs. Check the kit often and replenish the contents as needed. You should only provide first aid within the scope of your training. This is a bowline. It can be used to loop an end of a rope around an object and snub off to that object. We start with an overhand loop. The tail of the line comes up through that loop, around the standing part of the line, and back down through the loop. We pull on the 3 legs down here in one direction, and the standing part in the opposite direction to dress and set this knot. This is commonly referred to as a double bowline. You can use it to create a loop in the rope if you need a loop to maybe attach a piece of hardware or carabiner. You're going to start with a doubled over section of rope with a bight in the end. Take an overhand loop. The bight is going to come up through that loop, go around both the tail and the standing part of the line, and back down through the loop. Then you should have 3 loops on the bottom. You want to pull those evenly while you pull the standing part and the tail in the opposite direction. We're going to show you a running bowline and how it can be used. We're going to take the tail of our line around the standing part of our line. We're going to create an overhand loop on this end of the tail. The other end of our line comes up through that loop, around, and back down. Dress this and set it, and then we run it up into the tree. This is a clove hitch in the end of the line. It can be used to anchor the end of a line to an object. To start, we make a turn around the tree, cross over, another turn around the tree, passing our tail through the middle. We'll align the turns, set that as best we can, and then finish up with 2 half hitches on the line. And those half hitches should travel in the same direction, like so. This is a square knot. It can be used to join 2 ropes of the same diameter. We're going to start with an overhand and another overhand. Now you'll notice before I set this knot, the way one section of this or one leg of this knot comes around, and it's symmetrical. This is a figure 8 knot. Generally used as a stopper knot in the end of a line. We're going to make a loop, pass back underneath the standing part of the line, and then back down through the bottom part of the loop. You can see how it looks like an 8. This is a butterfly knot. It can be used to create a midline anchor point. We start with 1, 2, 3 overhand loops. The left-hand loop crosses over to the middle. The new left-hand loop goes completely over and is pulled through. We align the parts and pull it tight. Here's our anchor point. If we want to break this knot, we pull on these 2 loops. Here we're coiling a rope. We're going to hang this rope in an equipment box on our truck, and so we're trying to keep the loops even length and short enough so that they won't touch the bottom of the box. Also, while we're coiling this rope, we're inspecting it with my hands. When I get down to the end of the rope, I'm going to take the end, make a couple of tight turns around the coil, pass a bight up through, put another bight through that, and double it back over to create a secure hanging point. By reviewing this video in Workbook Chapter 3, you should learn how to inspect a job site in order to identify what to protect during the operation, as well as to recognize worksite hazards. Be able to understand a work order, know how a work plan is created, and how and why a job briefing is conducted. Be able to tie and know the uses for a variety of knots. Learn the ground worker's role during an emergency and be able to judge when it is necessary to control traffic with a flag person. Now that we have our work plan and we've conducted our job briefing, I think we can work a lot more safely and confidently.
On behalf of the ISA
and the NAA,
please work safely.